Welcome to Exposing Workplace Bullying, where we pull back the curtain and have real conversations about workplace abuse. This is episode 17, The Case for Collective Action. I'm your host, Dr. Jan Kircher. I thought we would start off with a little bit of trivia. You know, in case you ever end up on Jeopardy! Imagine this. You choose the category, U.S. Presidents for 1000. I'm your host and I read the clue. This U.S. President, when dealing with an unsolvable problem, said, "If a problem cannot be solved, enlarge it." That's a tricky one. So you think for a minute and then you answer. Who is Dwight Eisenhower, the 34th President of the United States? Woohoo! Congratulations! You got it right. Now, you might be wondering what Eisenhower has to do with workplace bullying. Well, more than you think. Because what he was really saying is that when you're in the thick of a problem, like workplace bullying, your instinct is to frame it as a private issue between you and the bully. You just want Bob to back off and the behavior to stop. But that rarely works. It gets minimized, ignored, or even flipped back on you, because in the eye of the system, it's just you, one person. But when you widen the lens and look for others who are being harmed, suddenly the issue is no longer about one employee's complaint. It becomes a question of fairness standards and the deeper cultural failures that allow bullying to thrive. At this point, it's not just one person being mistreated, it's the credibility of the entire workplace coming into question. It becomes a collective problem, and collective problems can't be dismissed as easily. And yes, one way we reveal the truth is by using Eisenhower's philosophy. Make it bigger so the system can finally see the systemic risk for what it is. Whether you realize it or not, you're already starting to push back collectively. You're working on making change. You might already have a collaborative partner, and that matters. It's incredibly important, and it makes a huge difference, especially when that partner is someone you can trust. You finally stop fighting alone, and you and your collaborative partner get creative in your strategies. You shift from responding and shutting down one bully to actually thinking bigger. How can you shut down workplace bullying in your organization for good? And one way you can make the problem bigger is through collaborative reporting. Whether we like it or not, if we want change, we have to call out the problem. That means some of us have to report. But any time reporting is involved, there is increased risk for those reporting. That doesn't go away just because you have a partner. In fact, it may even increase the risk because now your partner might be identified as a problem too. Both of you are more at risk for retaliation because when you report collaboratively, you're making a move that threatens the bully, and you're making the problem bigger. And Bob isn't down with that. And trust me, he'll get even, one way or another. So when you're thinking about reporting collaboratively, you and Brian, don't take that decision lightly. If you do want to move forward with collaborative reporting, here are a few things to think about. Remember, you're not making one report. You're making two separate reports about the same bully. You'll share some of the same events, but you'll also have different ones because your roles are different. You have the direct abuse from Bob, and your collaborative partner has the witness perspective. This means each of you needs your own timeline of events, your own field notes, and your own evidence. Ideally, of course, your stories will line up, but they should not be identical. When you go into HR or whoever handles the report, each of you is telling your own story, not a rehearsed joint statement. Here's where you need to be careful. You're going to be tempted to talk about how the behavior affects you, and your collaborative partner is going to want to talk about how it affects them. But remember, you're enlarging the problem. Together, you frame it as, this isn't just hurting us, it's hurting the system, it's hurting the team, it's hurting our clients. This behavior doesn't align with our mission, and it's harming our reputation in the community. That's how you make the problem bigger. So if you decide to make a collaborative report to human resources, you might say something like this. Yes, Helen, Bob's behavior has been consistent since I was hired last year. You can clearly see that in my field notes, it's not a one-off. It's a documented pattern, and I have evidence that corroborates every part of it. And that pattern is undermining the team's safety, productivity, and frankly, Helen, HR's credibility. Because when no one is held accountable, especially those aligned with Bob, it sends a clear message that reporting concerns to HR won't lead to meaningful action. And that hurts how the team operates. And here's my own personal twist on Eisenhower's philosophy. It's not just about enlarging the problem. It's also about planting the seeds for real solutions with the people who have the power to make change. Yeah, like human resources. You both tell the person you're reporting to what you think they should do, the specific action or preferably actions you want them to take. Because let's be honest, most of the time HR is winging it. And when it comes to workplace bullying, the organization has usually tied HR's hands, so half the time they can't act, and the other half, they don't know what to do. So, really, you're just doing them a favor. Hey, Helen, meetings are a complete mess. They run forever. People talk over each other and nothing gets decided. What if the organization created an actual structure for how meetings should run? And then you can really lean into it. Isn't there already something out there? What's it called? Robert's Rules of Order. Robert's Rules of Order. Maybe we could use those so meetings stop turning into a chaotic mess. Now, don't hate me for bringing up Robert's Rules of Order or something like it. You know, those formal guidelines that keep meetings from going off the rails. The point isn't what you call them. The point is giving you a system-level tool to help meetings run smoother. And then your partner has your back, and Brian might jump in and say, yes, Helen, Robert's rules would help meetings. But you can also see that Bob and, honestly, Betty too, are using our internal messaging platform to criticize people and cause harm. A communication policy that explains what these platforms are for and how to use them could reduce misuse. It would set clear parameters around what's acceptable and what isn't. And that would make your job a whole lot easier. And if you need help building that, I can definitely help. What do you think, Helen? Can we count on you? And now you've created a shared narrative about the larger impact, a bigger organizational frame, system-level solutions that expose cultural patterns, and a path Helen can take toward real accountability. That is exactly how you enlarge the problem and make your collective action harder to ignore. You're probably thinking, Jan, are you out of your mind? That will not work. But you know what? I've actually seen this type of thing work in real life when I was being bullied in faculty meetings of all places. We had a temporary chair at one time, and things were out of control. And we decided to use a modified version of Robert's Rules of Order. We agreed to follow them, and we had a strong leader who actually knew how to implement them. He was tough, but quiet. The bullies and the minions pushed back, tried to interrupt, tried to take over the room, and he would remain calm and simply would say quietly, "Thank you, Bob. It isn't your turn. Keep going, Jan." Were meetings perfect? No, but they were safer. They were better. They were less chaotic. The majority finally had space to speak. And Bob, well, he was the only one who really felt the sting of the structure. That's the point, because his feet were held to the fire. He had to follow the rules too. But it doesn't stop there, because we haven't stopped bully culture yet. So we go back to the drawing board, keep brainstorming. We made some gains, but we want to keep going. So we keep thinking about Eisenhower. If a problem cannot be solved, enlarge it. And workplace bullying? Yeah, that's a big problem. But it's also a symptom of something bigger. An organization that's dysfunctional, to say the least. When an organization has bullying and they refuse to stop it, it tells you something about who they are, what they value, the heart of the organization. And honestly, as we head into the holiday season, you might even say the place has the heart of the Grinch. 2 sizes too small. Because if bullying is happening, it's almost guaranteed the organization has other problems too. And your job, especially when you have a collaborative partner, is to start figuring out what those other flaws are so you can connect your bullying experience to them. That's how you enlarge the problem and expose the system. You shine a bright light on everything. So maybe there are other units or departments in your organization that are also dealing with bullying. In some places I've worked, it wasn't just common. It was everywhere. At some of the universities, it would have been easier to list the departments without bullying because those were so few and far between. And here's where I absolutely dropped the ball. Of course, I talked to other people in other departments about bullying, but the conversations were always the same. How can I get my bully to stop? I don't know. How can you get your bully to stop? It was individual, isolated. Damn, super short-sighted thinking if you ask me. Because if we had actually connected, if we had mapped it out, we could have made the problem bigger. Because it was bigger. Bullying wasn't a social work department issue. It was a university-wide issue. And bullying wasn't the only problem. Some units were dealing with racism, others with sexism, others with pay inequities. And that was just faculty. Staff had their own battles happening right alongside us. But we never consolidated our issues. Part of that was politics, because faculty often thought they were better than staff, which is crap, if I do say so myself. And the reality is, they were hurting. We were hurting. And hurt doesn't have a pedigree. So imagine what we could have done if we had organized collectively. And here's what really gets me. Most of these issues were publicly known. I didn't even need inside information to know the university that I was working in was a mess. It had massive unfair workplace practices, not just bullying. But not every place is like a university, and sometimes the flaws are less obvious. So your first step is to expand the problem. You might start by keeping your eyes and ears open, really listening to what people are saying. What does it mean when Betty says, "That guy makes my skin crawl"? What's going on behind the scenes? What are people hinting at but not saying outright? And let's be honest, some of them are directly saying it outright. That helps build your case. So talk to someone who's been around your organization for a long time. The person who knows the history, the patterns, the politics, the players. You know who I'm talking about, because you won't have to say much to start that conversation. Just go ask a question. Yes, with ulterior motives, of course, and see what you find out. Then start putting those pieces together, you and your collaborative partner, and the next collaborative partner you put on your team. Because bullying doesn't live alone. If Bob exists, other organizational dysfunctions exist too. You might discover things like workload manipulation, gaslighting in performance reviews, people being pushed out quietly, staff being talked down to, insurance issues, taking advantage of clients, decisions being made in back channels, and yes, even the office only having Folgers brand coffee. You know, the kind you can cut with a knife, because that's how we've always done it. The point is, if your organization tolerates one form of dysfunction or unfair practices, like workplace bullying, they almost always tolerate others. Your job is to find those flaws, and when you do, they become your clues. Clues that help you connect your own bullying experiences to what's happening to other people across the organization and to the larger pattern underneath it all. And when you start out trying to make your situation bigger by connecting with others, approach them the same way you did Brian. Slowly, carefully, with empathy. You're feeling things out cautiously. You're paying attention to who feels safe, who's been hurt, and who's been watching this dysfunction for too long with no real change. Who might be willing to step up too? Once you find those people, it's not just your experience, it's a shared experience. Your story connects with theirs, and together your stories become part of a larger picture, a larger narrative. That's what it means to enlarge the problem. You begin linking what happened to you with everything else the organization tolerates. Racism, favoritism, workload exploitation, communication failures, all the hidden cracks that show the culture is broken. One issue on its own seems small, but when you put them together, the snowball forms and it starts rolling. That's why collective action requires conversation, comparison, and understanding how the culture actually works and how it's hurting everyone. It's a strategy. choosing the right people, the right narrative, and the right moment to act. And when you work together, you start seeing what's possible. You negotiate, you compromise. Maybe you want an anti-bullying policy, and others want an anti-racism policy. You may not get both, but an anti-racism policy still strengthens the fight against bullying. This isn't about me, it's about we. That's the message leadership needs to hear. This isn't a single complaint. It's the organization speaking as a group, demanding safer workplaces and accountability. And when your workplace improves, the work still continues. Bully culture doesn't disappear when one building cleans itself up. If the hospital down the road is still harming people, the culture hasn't changed enough. It's just moved. History shows how collective action works, but these fights are never easy, and there's no guarantee. But when people come together, the power dynamic shifts. There is strength in numbers. My voice is powerful. It's loud. Yours is powerful too. Together, we're even stronger. That's what collective action is, a long-term strategy to make workplaces safer. First yours, then your industry, then everywhere. And I won't be satisfied until it's global. Bullying is everywhere. So the solution has to be everywhere too. That's the bigger vision. That's the power of collective action. When you start partnering with people in your workplace, and it spreads from there. And can you believe it? We're almost at the end of season 2, the bystander effect. Our last episode is the bystander's choice, because every bystander in bully culture has a choice to make, whether they know it or not. And that's where we're going to wrap up this season. As always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. If this episode hits home, check out stopbullyculture.com, where I share tools, resources, and real talk to help you deal with workplace abuse. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Until next time.
They gaslight and plot, play their games. Witness a smile, you're part of the shame. Your boss stays silent, closing the door. How many voices will they ignore? The bully lies, the brave get burned. The office watches, no lessons learned. Your boss hides, truth gets colder. It's time to stop the bully culture.